It's a gorgeous October day in Wales, so the perfect opportunity to introduce you to the largest organism on the planet. The blue whale is the largest animal that has ever lived that we know of. There's also an aspen grove in Colorado that's made of clones of, well, thousands and thousands of trees, all genetically identical, and that sort of counts as one organism as well. But the record holder for the largest living thing that we have discovered so far comes in at about 35,000 tonnes and covers several square miles. And most of the time, you can't see it at all. At this time of year, though, it emerges from its subterranean world where it dominates the biomass under the surface and pops up lots and lots and lots and lots of mushrooms. This particular species is one of the complex known as the honey fungus, Armillaria malea. In fact, the one in Oregon, which covers several square miles, is Armillaria ostroides. It's one of the species complex within this group. And we have this in the UK. We certainly have honey fungus. And if you go out around this time of year, you will probably find some. Because it's everywhere.
The species is extremely variable, but luckily it's also quite recognisable. It's got this sort of scaly cap, it's got quite a prominent ring here. The spores are white, so you see these sort of white patches where it's been dropping spores on other mushrooms. And it's really quite distinctive. You start to see it quite commonly once you start looking. But of course what you're seeing here is only the tip of the iceberg, or a bit less than that, because throughout this habitat there will be honey fungus underground and particularly in dead wood. So if you pull off a little bit off the bark of this dead tree like this, you can see there's these little sort of filaments, these what they call bootlaces underneath the bark, which is part of the mycelium of this rather incredible fungus. And it can spread a long way like that. Unlike a lot of fungi, it doesn't really care whether the wood is already dead, it just starts eating it. And certainly old or slightly diseased trees, it can certainly kill off. So it's not the favoured fungus of most gardeners, shall we say. Of course, in order to spread further afield, it needs to use the spores. So we're going to take one of these back and see if we can find a few and just have a look at them. Because they're amazing things if you've got enough magnification to see them. Most fungi have a sort of limit to the range that they cover, but this one in particular seems to just carry on going on and on and on, and particularly in North America it seems this one subvariety of it can carry on going for miles and end up being a large chunk of the biomass under the forest floor.
Although Armillaria feeds on wood, and many other fungi do as well, it's not strictly restricted to one tree, which is the secret to its success. So those black bootlaces, what they call rhizomorphs, allow it to disperse very rapidly from one tree through the ground to the next source of dead wood that it can make use of. So you end up with a colony multiplying rapidly, especially through woodland type environments where these rhizomorphs don't have to go very far before they find the next food source. And it can then keep going for, in the case of the one in Oregon, something like 2,500 years it's thought to be the age of it. To extend beyond one particular bit of woodland though, or beyond an area where there is dead wood, roots and so on underground, you need spores. And the spores of fungi are extremely small and can be transported enormous distances by the wind. This is another advantage to having mushrooms that pop up on the decaying trunks of trees. You can find these several feet off the ground, where a light breeze will pick up the spores as they drop out from the gills and waft them for miles and miles and miles, which is why we have the same species here as in North America. I brought that one back earlier and put it onto a microscope slide, and it should have produced a few spores by now. We should probably go and have a look.
So here it is, and just lift this up, and that is a lovely spore print. So white spores as per spec, and from that we can just stick it into a microscope and hopefully get pictures. So this is the system we have, with a neat little eyepiece camera that simply plugs into there on an old Dialux microscope. Got this fairly cheaply, and then it plugs into your laptop and we can see what these spores look like. Let's zoom in a bit closer, and quite a lot of focusing needed. Okay, we're starting to get something there, and I think we can go closer again. Have to change the exposure time, and as if by magic we have spores. Interesting. Now apparently the spores of Armillaria malea itself should have an apiculus. That's a little sort of point sticking out the end, which this one, it appears, does not. So I've been looking around for a little while and not finding, even in these isolated ones, any sign of an apiculus. So this, I'm guessing, is not indeed Armillaria malea. It's one of the other species. Oh, scratch that. There's one with an apiculum right there. Okay, so it's probably just Armillaria malea. Looks like most of the spores just aren't quite at the right angle to see them. But yeah, there's another one at the top there as well, so yeah. That's the sort of thing you have to look at for these, apparently.
I don't think we can actually be sure precisely which species this is from that. Probably have to measure the spores, probably have to look at quite a lot of other characters as well. So I think with a ring on the stem, whether that's persistent or what colour it is and so on is quite an important feature. So I would have to hit the books quite hard in order to find out exactly which one it is. But it's certainly a very close relative, and they all fall under the umbrella of honey fungus, which, as we might have mentioned, is the biggest thing we've ever found alive. And if that's not one of nature's wonders, I'm not quite sure what is. So you can probably go and find some yourself and marvel at what you're not seeing. I'm just off to the seaside tomorrow to go do something completely different, a bit of modern biology, a bit of geology, a bit of paleontology, possibly. We'll find out. Stay tuned if you want to see what turns up. I think I do.